Welcome everyone to today's video. We're the Dimitrov-Boulay piano duo. My name is Dimitri Dimitrov.
And my name is Elvire Boulay.
And today we wanted to talk to you about something very practical. Finding the right notes while you're playing. That's right. It sounds simple, right? But if you look at it, I have here the book of Chopin waltzes. If you look from bar, for example, 264, all the notes are approximately written on the staff in the G clef. If you look, you have in the 264 bar, you have all the notes on the staff. So all of us are actually quite familiar with finding those notes. But if you look a little bit further, from bar 265 and then especially 266, you will start seeing that all the notes are written on top of the staff. And that's why we thought with Elvira it would be useful to talk about this topic, how to find those notes, because we see with a lot of people that they have problem finding the notes.
So I think the first step actually is to know that you can count out your notes. I think that's the first step. It's very important to know. If you don't know a note, you can count it out from a note that you do know. Now this knowledge can lead to counting it out but not doing it in the quickest way. So in a few minutes we're gonna show you how to count these notes out the quickest way. But that's the first thing, know that you can count them out.
Before we go to the examples, my personal advice to you would be, one of the most important things I can think about is don't hit the notes randomly. Whenever you see a very high note, it doesn't matter if it's with 2 extra lines or 3 extra lines, doesn't matter. If you don't know the note, just don't hit it randomly until you think you've got the right note, or until you think that it sounds right. That's not going to be good for you, because yes, at the end of the day, you might find the right note, but you have to ask yourself the question, are you trying to actually learn something? Are you trying to actually understand what that note is? And so next time, next day, or next week, when that same note appears, do you actually want to know that note, or do you want to guess it again? And the other thing I wanted to mention is we just made a video. I don't know what the name, what was the topic actually?
Well, shortcuts was the topic.
Shortcuts. Yeah, anyway, we'll put it again somewhere here on the screen, I don't know where, but in this video we discussed actually that it's really not good for you to fall into scams and shortcuts to good results with piano playing. And doing guesswork, just hitting randomly the notes until you find the right one, it's kind of, you are looking for a shortcut, but at the end of the day, it's the longest way to learning that note or those notes. So bottom line is, don't hit them randomly. You want to learn proper habits, and you actually want to start getting to know the notes with extra lines.
And from personal experience, I used to do everything by ear when I was just starting out, and my reading skills suffered really bad and I had to catch up a lot. So in the end, you know, if you do such a shortcut, if you try to use such a shortcut, you end up creating more work for yourself.
And one more thing, we're going to give you now practical advice on how to find the notes. But I would say, so one thing was don't hit them randomly, and the other is experience. If you practice consistently with experience, you're going to start recognizing those extra notes, those extra high or low notes. With experience, they're going to start seeming familiar to you, and you will see that you will have to think less and less about them. So just play consistently, play a lot of different music, and you will see wonderful results.
And you've heard us mention it before, Prima Vista, playing sight reading, is actually a great way to play a lot of music in a short time, and it will really help you improve your reading skills, and it will also help you improve reading those high notes. Okay, so enough talking, let's look at some examples together.
By the way, if you're liking and enjoying the video, make sure that you give us a thumbs up. That will help our channel enormously. And if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our channel as well. Now, let's look at this bar 23 of the Waltz Opus 17 number 1 by Chopin. As you can see, we're having 1, 2, 3, 4 notes in this bar 23 that we need to find. But since 2 of the notes are the same, we need to find only 3 notes. How do we find these notes? It's very simple. You have to have a starting point from which you can count. We're going to count the notes because that's the way in the beginning to find them. Our starting point will depend on how high we can read, in this case, the notes on the extra lines. So as you can see, the first note that we're looking for has 3 extra lines and it's written on the 3rd line. My starting point, let's say, would be to start counting from the 2nd extra line because I automatically know that that's the note C. Now, if you're not familiar also with the note that belongs to the 2nd extra line, you can start also lower. Let's say that you're very familiar with the 1st extra line written, which would be the note A flat. It's an A flat because we have the key signature, because of the key signature, because of all the flats you see in the beginning of the bar. So it's not an A natural, but it's an A flat. So your starting point is an A flat, which is written on the 1st extra line. Now, once we've determined what's our starting point, we're going to start counting by thirds the notes upwards until we find our note on the 3rd line. Why by thirds? Because remember one thing. Whenever you have all the notes next to each other, all the neighboring notes that are written on lines are a 3rd interval difference from each other. If you don't know what a third is, that means that this piece is quite advanced for you and you will have to get familiar with that. If you have any questions, you will let us know. That's third is an interval. This is a third, this is a third, this is a third. A third has a note in between. And since our note is written on the line, that's why our starting point would be also on a note on the line, and that would be the 1st extra line, which is the A flat. So we're familiar with that note. Then the 2nd extra line automatically would be a 3rd higher, which would mean that it's the note C. And then the 3rd extra line would be the note we're looking for, that's an E flat. It's that simple. You can also count note by note. You can count A flat, then in between the 1st and the 2nd extra lines would be B, then C, then D flat, then E flat. That's also possible, but if you know that all the notes that are written on the lines and are next to each other are a 3rd difference from each other, it's much easier to skip a note. You'll find the note you're looking for much quicker. The next note, since it's written as you can see, the next note is a neighboring note, so I automatically know that after the E flat comes F, because they're written next to each other, so you will guess that very easily. And now, because I want to be absolutely clear so you can find them as easy as possible, it's good to repeat that a lot. Let's find the last note of this bar. That last note is really high, and so it could be maybe the most difficult to find. My first question to you would be, where is the note written? Is it written on a line or in between? As you can see, our last note, the last note we're looking for, is written not on a line, but it's written above the line, or as we call it, between lines. That's a very important question to answer. Then we go to the second question, and my second question is, what note would be a good starting point for you that's written also not on a line but between the lines? And again, you can go with 2 different, for example, I will give you 2 different examples. You can go with a G flat that's written between the 1st extra line and the last line of our staff. That's the G flat, as you can see that. Or you can start on the B flat, if you're familiar with that note without guesswork, which is written between the 1st and the 2nd extra line. Now we're going to start from the B flat, because I'm very familiar with that note. I know it immediately. And then we start counting upwards. Our starting point is B flat, which is written between the 1st and 2nd extra line. Then we go a 3rd higher, which is D flat. That's written between the 2nd and the 3rd extra line. Then we go 1 higher, 3rd higher, which is F. That's written between the 3rd and the 4th extra line. And then we go a 3rd higher, and that will be the note we're looking for, an A flat. You can never go wrong if you go by thirds. It's super easy. It saves you time instead of going note by note. If you start on the B flat and you go B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, it's going to take forever. So you can always count in thirds from your starting point and you will find the note in no time. To sum up, because it is extremely important that you understand it very well, ask yourself 2 questions. Is the note I'm looking for written on a line or between the lines? And when you answer that question, the second question is, what's my starting point? And your starting point is a note that you're absolutely, the highest possible note that you're absolutely familiar with. It can be G, it can be A, it can be B, which are written already above our staff. And your starting point has to be a note that's written on the line or between the lines, depending on the note you're looking for. If the note you're looking for is a note written on the line, your highest starting point has to be a note that's also written on the line, and then you can start counting in thirds. If the note you're looking for is written on top of the line or between the lines, you have to also have a starting note that's also written between the lines. And then you count in thirds. Now I have one more. Aside from that, once you find a note, there's something very, very, very important here. I want you, once you discover that note, I want you to write down on top of the note or next to the note the letter that the note belongs to. Like if it's an E, write an E next to the note. If it's a G, write a G next to the note, because I always do that with myself when I'm practicing. If the note is very high, yes, I'm going to find it using the method I just described to you, but I'm also going to, after that, I'm going to write it down next to the note, because I don't want to count every time. I want to be able to play the piece, and stopping every time to count can be really annoying. So once you find it the proper way, don't hit it randomly, write down next to the note what the note is, and then it's going to be much more pleasant. So as you can see, finding notes on the extra lines can take some time, but the more you do it, the better you will become. You can also, I'm not familiar, maybe Elvira knows more about these apps. I'm not familiar with apps where you can learn notes, but I think that could also be useful. Are there apps actually that they can look as well, like guessing the note, and the app tells you, gives you feedback, did you guess the note or not?
Yeah, definitely, because I actually liked very much what you said about write the note above the, write the letter which the note belongs to. So if it's a G, you would write the letter G. I like that very much, because even though we're very clear, don't use shortcuts, don't, do the work. I also think that it's discouraging if you are working on a piece that you have to keep on doing the same thing. Like, look more in repetition, as in doing sight reading or doing exactly like you suggest, an app. Do more repetition there, and don't take the pleasure out of the piece that you're working on. I like that. So yeah, there's tons of apps. You can find free apps, you can find paid apps. There's an app I like to use with my students. I can link it down below. And the reason I like this app is that it really associates the correct heights on the piano. And that's quite unusual for an app. So if you find that important, I find it important, you can use the link that I give in the description box. But there's tons of stuff. So if you want a free app, there's tons of free apps too. And in the end, it's not that important which app you use. In the end, it's important if you do it 5 minutes a day, you get that repetition. Isn't talking about that actually, what do we think you should be knowing by heart? Well, if you want to play advanced pieces, I think 2 to 3 lines you should know by heart. It just saves you a lot of work, and they are just used that often that it's not a problem for you. You can learn that by heart easily.
Anyway, this is what we wanted to talk to you about, and we hope that you found it useful, because we want to talk about this because we see that a lot of students actually suffer with this issue, and they do all the wrong things, and they play the wrong notes, and they feel frustrated. So make sure, the bottom line here is, if you come up with your own system of finding notes, let us know. That would be really awesome to hear that you found something yourself. The most important is, take the time to learn them, you will be rewarded. Now, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, that will help our channel enormously. Of course, also subscribing to our channel will help us. You can also follow us on Instagram. We upload there very regularly. Thank you so much for being here and watching this video, and we'll see you next time again.